What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Thee CrazyFaceUno Podcast, where everyone has a story and everyone's story matters. What's your story? We are going into part 2 of Janie Lunn's story. She's been working in the Peace Corps, and we're going to hear more about her story and specifically about COVID-19. If you're just now tuning in to this episode and you haven't listened to part 1 of Janie Lunn, please go back, listen to the first part, and then join us on the second part now. Welcome, Janie. I appreciate you coming on the show. We got to talking in the first part. We're killing it, and we've both got the time, and so we're going to keep going and talk a little bit more about your experience throughout COVID-19 and what that looked like for you at the Peace Corps.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks again for having me. Happy to do part 2.
Yeah. Awkward,
but
right?
It's
like weird to kind of jump back into it when we've been continuing to go.
Well, yeah, just a little brief recap from the end of part 1. I had told Shane that I was meeting up with some friends the weekend before St. Patrick's Day to celebrate, and we were all at this restaurant, and it was Saturday, the 14th, I believe, and we all received an email from Peace Corps telling us that we would have the option to take interrupted service, which is essentially ending your service due to something that's out of your control. So usually it will be like if there's a safety and security issue and you have to leave your site. It's a way that your service ends without you saying, you know, I just chose to leave because I wanted to leave. It's something that you couldn't control. And so we would all have the option to take interrupted service and still get certain benefits and certain status upon returning.
Right.
And that raised a lot of questions for a lot of us. And, you know, we didn't know what the likelihood of getting evacuated would be, mandatory evacuation, and Peace Corps countries around the world were just rapidly increasing with evacuations. And so we just didn't know what was happening. And we, at this point, still had 0 cases, or at least 0 confirmed cases in Uganda. And so, as I said, this was on a Saturday, so we all, you know, spent all Saturday talking about it, and we all spent Sunday, like, on our own, trying to just kind of think about what we wanted to do. And, so we had all day Sunday, and then they told us that week they would be reaching out to us individually to see what you wanted to do. And Monday morning, I woke up at maybe 8 o'clock, and my phone had just completely blown up. We had gotten an email that all Peace Corps posts around the world were being evacuated. Wow. So before we even really got to make a decision,
was it the Peace Corps calling you, or was this like family and friends and people you knew?
No, so it was the email from Peace Corps, and then it was like group chats with other volunteers,
sure.
Just blowing up with, you know, holy crap, this is happening.
Yeah.
Like we gotta go. And so yeah, that was on Monday morning, and everything happened very fast. We had to get down to, so I lived in Lira, which is in the north of Uganda, and it's on a good day with little traffic, it's about a 6-hour bus ride to Kampala. But, you know, depending on all kinds of factors, can be anywhere up to like 9 hours.
Yeah.
And so one of my fellow volunteers, she and I both had dogs, and they were actually twins.
Oh, and, no, wow.
Yeah, and so we had always planned on bringing them home with us after service, but with everything happening so fast, we knew that Peace Corps was not going to accommodate our pets, which that's understandable. I don't fault them for that. But we knew that it was going to be up to us to figure it out, even with all of the chaos. So we called our safety and security manager and asked him, you know, we said, there's a vet in Kampala that will send the dogs home, and we'll do all the tests that they need to have done in order to go to the States, and we'll take them to the airport and get them on the plane and all of that. So we needed to get the dogs to the vet. And so we called him and asked, if we should wait until the following day or if we should just go.
Mm-hmm.
And this was already midday on Monday. And he said that if we left any later, we weren't guaranteed anything. So we had to just go. So we didn't get to say goodbye to anybody.
Wow.
And that was the case even for a lot of volunteers, who didn't have dogs and weren't rushing to the Capitol for that reason. It was just everything happened so fast because we had to, you had to pack up everything you wanted to bring with you.
Right.
And so it was a very, very chaotic process.
So from that morning, bring me up to speed, just kind of timeline wise. So you wake up, you've got multiple phone calls, you check in your email, you're looking at these, messages or whatever's on your phone. What was the next thing from there? Was it like calling the Peace Corps basically, or calling your leaders?
So from there, they had made it pretty clear in the email, that we were being evacuated. Did they provide those tickets for you, or was that something you had to book? Like, how did that go? Our tickets home?
Yeah.
No, so they would book all of that for us. So I can't remember if it was by Tuesday or Wednesday, but everyone had to be in Entebbe. So Entebbe is about an hour, I believe, south of Kampala, and that's where the airport is. So they put us in a hotel there, and we had everyone who was being evacuated was closing their service. So normally at the end of your service, you go through a conference that's your COS, close of service conference. Yeah. And then you do your actual COS ceremony when you actually leave, and you hit a gong and take your oath again, and you gong out, as they call it. And so we were supposed to have a COS conference, as everyone else does, and that happens a few months before you actually COS, and it's supposed to help you with kind of readjusting and reintegrating what to expect when you go back to America, and what you'll have to do on Peace Corps' end, like on the medical end and finances and all that kind of stuff. And so we basically just had a very chaotic and very rushed COS conference, because all of us were going to be officially COSing and getting the returned Peace Corps volunteer status. So when we first arrived at the hotel, they had a sheet with 1 to 3, depending on the options, flight options for each person, and you had to pick which one you wanted to do, and then that was the plan on Wednesday. And then, or it might have been Tuesday. I think it was Wednesday. Anyway,
everybody
really
listening,
matter.
We all understand. The days start to blend together. We get it.
Yeah. Actually, no, it was Tuesday, because then on Wednesday was when my flight was supposed to leave, Wednesday night. And so they just looked at, what flight options were still available. You picked one, and that was what you were going on. By Thursday morning, they took us in trips to the local bank to close our bank accounts, because we all had local bank accounts. And while I was in the first group of people to go to the bank, and while we were there, we started getting texts that flights were being canceled and people were getting put on flights that were leaving in like an hour. And so everybody just had to get back to the hotel, and you had to just pack your stuff and be ready to go.
Wow.
And so, because I think at that point was when all flights through Europe got canceled, and a lot of the flight options that they had given us connected in different places in Europe. And so all of those were no longer viable options. And so they started just booking any of us on any flight that they could find that would get us to our home of record. And so, the next few days were just complete chaos of, very rapid goodbyes and people getting calls saying they had to get to the airport within the hour. And it was a lot. And I mean, the staff, did their absolute best. Like, it was not in any way, shape, or form their fault that it was just so chaotic. And so for myself and I think 35 other volunteers in Uganda,
35.
we didn't get flights. So,
surprise.
Yeah. So, I was supposed to be back home by Friday night with my original flight, and Friday came and I still didn't have a flight.
Wow.
And so for the remainder of us that were still there, they told us they were chartering a plane that was going to pick up volunteers in a few other countries, including Uganda.
Yeah.
And just be a direct flight to DC from there.
Mm-hmm.
So within that time frame, we had 6 flight changes and cancellations.
Wow.
So
before you even got, I don't think you were even on a plane yet, but like throughout this time period, are you just like sitting at a hotel in the meantime?
Yeah, we were literally just sitting at a hotel. We actually, funny story, there's a tattoo artist in Kampala who's really, really talented, and
Nice.
like anybody who's gotten a tattoo there, that's where you go.
Yeah.
And they'll sometimes travel to other places. So someone in our group got the tattoo artist to come to Entebbe.
Nice.
And set up shop in their hotel room. So they had like a full tattoo shop set up in their hotel room.
That's fun.
And they were there for like over 12 hours that day, and people just popping in, getting tattoos left and right.
Did you get
and
one?
It was actually, I did get one.
Nice.
One of the girls in my cohort designed a tattoo for herself that was kind of a loose drawing of a crested crane, which is the Ugandan national bird. And the part that makes up the crest at the top represents the equator. It's kind of like a semicircle with a line on the bottom. And then there's water underneath to represent the Nile. And
that's so cool.
She sent it to us, and everyone was like, I love that idea. I love it. I love the way it looks. I love the idea behind it. And a whole bunch of us ended up getting it.
That's awesome. Fun fact,
so, yeah.
I have a crested crane on my left, like
No
inside
way.
of my arm. Yeah, my team.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah, my team, Andrea Ramsey.
Yes.
Now not
my
Ramsey.
Queen, I love her.
I know, me too. She was my team lead on my second tour. Yeah,
yes,
she
was the greatest.
My favorite person. And
yes.
So her, I don't know if you know Alex Alberico.
I don't think so.
And then he was on one of the street teams. So if you're familiar with that. And then our Ugandan teammate, Fiona, we all got tattoos in Ohio.
Yes. I love that.
Yeah, so they got or not Weelobo. They got their Acholi names, which mine is Weelobo, which is the world, I believe.
Oh, I love that.
And then we also, one of our phrases was Nate Hinn, who passed away in the terrorist attack at the World Cup in Kampala. He had a saying, or like in his film, the film that we toured with, it was, "What is my life?" And we would say this all the time because we had so much fun on tour and we loved spending time with each other and just loved what we were doing. And so we'd say, "What is my life? Like, what is my life? Like, are you kidding me? Like, we get to do this?"
I say that all the time.
I know. And so my teammates, the two, Andrea and Alex, they both got their Acholi names on one wrist, and then "What is my life?"
I love that.
on the other, and I just didn't want anything on my wrists, and so I went with mine is the picture like literally in the middle of the Ugandan flag. That's my crested crane.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, we had
story time with tattoos.
Yes. Yeah, we had one guy in my cohort was getting like an actual, like a head of a crested crane, like a big tattoo.
Yeah.
And he got called to the airport halfway through his tattoo, so he has a half crested crane tattoo currently.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but yeah, so besides getting tattoos, we were pretty much just hanging out at the hotel trying to get updates however we could, but we had to just keep our bags packed and ready to go because we just never knew when your phone was going to ring. And it was so funny because we'd all be sitting around at lunch or something and somebody's phone would ring and everybody would just stop. Everyone was like, whose phone is it? Who is it? Who's got a flight? And yeah, so it was crazy.
Overall,
I did almost get
how
attacked
was
by monkeys.
that's you're gonna have to explain that one, and then I want to hear like kind of how morale was as well, like amongst
Yes.
you guys throughout this process. But tell us about the monkeys first.
Well, the monkey sightings helped morale, at least for me. I was really excited.
Yeah.
I was actually on FaceTime with my mom, and the hotel was beautiful. It was on Lake Victoria, so we had
Nice.
a beautiful view. And I was down by the water on FaceTime with my mom, and I just was like, "Oh my God, there's a monkey!" And she, I was just so excited. And I started to walk back inside, still on FaceTime with her, and there were like at least 20 monkeys just
Whoa.
running around the hotel lawn. And so at one point, there were two on the ground, and one was grooming the other. And so I went to take a video, and one of my friends is nearby telling me that she doesn't want to get close to them. She's scared of them. And I'm sitting there taking a video, and I'm like, "It's fine." And she goes, "There's one behind you." And I was like, "That's fine. It's okay." And I'm so glad I got this on video. The monkeys are grooming each other, realize that I'm there. And I didn't realize the one getting groomed had a baby underneath it.
Oh.
And so they turn around and see that I'm there, and I'm only 2 feet from them, and they just charge at me, and I just scream in the video.
Yeah.
So fortunately they didn't get me, but
Yeah.
and it's nice that they didn't see the baby, so I earned that. But yeah, but as far as morale, it was really hard because we were already, I think everyone processes very differently. So it really depended on the person. But at the end of the day, we all had just suffered this huge loss of community and of identity, and so much uncertainty and so much chaos. Everything, as I said, happened so fast, having to pack up your whole house and just get to Entebbe. That I think once we got to the hotel, there was initially some kind of camaraderie and joy because we were all together, and our friends who live in different regions, we were all together and able to hang out, and it was kind of nice that first night, just being all together. But then the next day was when all of our flights started getting canceled and things got even more chaotic, and morale just very, very quickly plummeted, actually. It was just everyone, then we kind of all went into panic mode of, I just need to get home. Because, at that point, at least in my mind, the way that I process these things is when I'm in a situation like that, my mind just goes to, I shut off all emotion, which I don't know how because I'm a relatively emotional person. But when I'm in these situations, my brain doesn't let me feel much, and so I'm just like, okay, what do I need to do to get to whatever the next thing is or the next point is that I have to get to. And so being that on edge for several days of complete uncertainty was really stressful, and very quickly just was like, all I need to do is get home, but how do I even do that? I'm not in control of my flights. I'm not able to even be helping with this, it's just I'm either told to go or I'm not. And so especially when we got down to the last 35 of us who didn't have a flight, and on top of that, we had to keep saying goodbye to our family, these friends had become our family. And it's hard because in the time that you're there, as much as people at home want to support you and want to understand, they just can't.
Possible.
And it's not anything, against them. They could desperately want to understand and desperately want to support you, but there's only so much that they can do when you know that they don't understand what you're talking about or what you're feeling. And so you really come to rely on those people and those friends that you have made, especially, your fellow volunteers who just understand all of the things that you can't explain that you're going through. They can understand it without the words. And so they really just become your family. And, we were all just in groups of like 20, we were all just getting ripped apart from each other. And so it was very emotional. It was very intense. And then there got down to the 35 of us that didn't have a flight. And so we were told finally that Ethiopian Airlines would be picking us up, and then picking up volunteers in Rwanda and Malawi. And then we would be going to Ethiopia, and they didn't know how long we'd be in Ethiopia. They said we might have to stay in a hotel for a night. We might get directly onto another flight. We don't know yet.
How many days has it been up until this point?
So we left for Ethiopia on Friday.
Okay, and you started. You got that. And you got that initial Tuesday, right? Is that what you said?
We got the initial email for evacuation on Monday.
Monday, okay.
Yeah, so it had been 5 days, but it was definitely the most intense 5 days.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we got to Rwanda. For some reason, we sat at the terminal in Rwanda for about 3 hours. Still don't know why. And then and it was the middle of the night at this point. And then we go to Malawi to pick up volunteers, and then back up to Ethiopia. We got to Ethiopia around 5 o'clock in the morning, and they brought us to a hotel because our next flight was supposed to leave that evening.
Okay.
So this was Saturday morning at this point. So Saturday evening it was supposed to leave. And they just, even though it was a chartered flight, it kept getting canceled and kept getting rescheduled, and all kinds of things kept happening. And so this poor hotel just had volunteers from Uganda and Rwanda and Malawi and Cameroon volunteers had been there for a day or two already. And, they just had to deal with all of these Peace Corps people who were just freaking out. And so I feel so bad for them. But, so our flights just kept getting canceled. And finally, I think it was actually the first night when we were supposed to leave that night. We were told to bring all our stuff downstairs, have dinner at the hotel, and then grab your stuff and go to the airport. And so the entire lobby is just covered in all of our luggage. And we eat dinner and come out, and the Ugandan staff member that was with us tells us to bring our bags back upstairs. We have to recheck into the hotel because we had already checked out and everything. So we had to recheck into the hotel, and that we weren't leaving. So for some reason, the other country volunteers were leaving, but we were not, because we were on a second plane. And I don't know exactly what happened, but there was some possible exposure to corona. Yeah. And so we weren't able to take that plane. So we had to recheck in, stay in Ethiopia for the night, and then all the way into the next day. And we ended up leaving at around 8 p.m. the following night. So we were stuck in Ethiopia for about a day and a half.
Wow.
Yeah. And I mean, Ethiopia was really nice, and we were in a nice place, and we had each other and all of that, but it was more of a fear that every hour it seemed flights were getting canceled and borders were closing and airlines were shutting down. And we were just everyone just kept joking with us. We're like, well, I guess we're Ethiopia volunteers now.
Right.
I guess we just live here now,
How much at this point in time, how much did you know about, the coronavirus and really what's going on around the world and back in the States? Were you informed about that? Were you guys able to do, your research or be online and seeing all the tweets and all the, news articles and everything? Or what I just feel like even now in the States, and I'm sure you feel this here, there's a lot of fear right now.
Oh, absolutely.
And throughout that process of you guys trying to come home, was there fear amongst you guys? Was there fear in these different countries and in these different, airports, these different, processes?
Yeah.
What was that like?
Yeah, it was definitely high alert. Everyone was on high alert. I can only speak for myself, but I think it seemed to be a relatively common feeling amongst at least the volunteers. Was we were just so, I think, full
exhausted.
Of delirium. Delirium and adrenaline and exhaustion all at the same time, that we were just kind of just like zombies, just get me to where I'm going.
I'm sure.
We just didn't really care at that point. Just get me, at that point I've accepted that I'm going home. I've accepted where I'm going, but I need to get there. And it was, even before leaving Uganda for several weeks, I would be in a taxi or something, and I would sneeze or cough, and I would hear someone around me say corona. And something I thought was really interesting is, and this, I don't think this is exclusive to Uganda, but a lot of people were convinced that it's a white person's disease. And I remember reading an article. Yeah, I remember reading an article before we got evacuated that a case had popped up. I believe it was in Kenya, and the article just talked about how shocked everyone was that the person who had it was black and was a local Kenyan man, because they thought it was a white people disease. And so, you know, people, especially in Uganda, they're so welcoming and they're so kind and all of that. But I do think, I mean, safety wise, we probably got out at a really good time, because now, so cases did start popping up in Uganda 2 days after we left. So, you know, I think that if we were still there, we would very likely, at least by some people, be getting blamed for this and potentially punished for it. And
that's an interesting thought that my head didn't go.
Yeah, I mean, one of my friends, and we have no idea if this is related to Corona or not, but this was around the same time that we were all starting to get, like, people would call us Corona. And, you know, people would, if they heard me sneeze or cough, like I said, they would say Corona.
Wow.
And so this was around the same time that all of that was starting to happen. Some kids threw a rock at her head.
Wow.
I mean, and she was fine, but, you know, that's never happened to her before. And it was right when all of this stuff was starting to happen. And so we're, you know, we don't know if it was related or not, but it kind of seems like it was with the context of everything. And so, which
is so interesting, because, you know, we hear the stories, and, you know, there's been a lot of Asian, you know, ethnic backgrounds, and at least in the States, that have had, you know, kind of some of the similar things happen to them in the States, you know, and it's this idea that it's this Chinese virus, which it did originate there, but it's affecting everyone. So let's cut the shit, I mean, you know?
even if it, you know, even if it is the Chinese fault or whatever, you know, it's what is terrorizing one person of that race going to do for you or the virus or for them?
100%.
This person did not single-handedly create this virus and give it to the world, you know, like,
it's not their fault.
They just happen to be from the same place that those things happen. I happen to be from the same place as Donald Trump, but I don't claim responsibility for his fault.
Exactly. You know? No, I completely understand it. And that should be like, it really should be the global response, is that it doesn't matter. Like, we're in this together, you know, and it seems to be the thing that is starting to gain traction, but you can't I don't know, you can't stop everyone from having their own ideas and their own thoughts, which is unfortunate.
And I mean, and so as far as my knowledge of Corona during all of this evacuation, it was pretty minimal. I mean, I knew that it had flu-like symptoms, and I knew that it was causing fatalities, particularly in seniors and that kind of stuff, but I wasn't really concerned about it for myself, because my thought process was, I'm coming from a place where there's no cases. So even if, you know, I get home and I get it, I'll be fortunate enough to be in a place where I can access care. Number one. And number two, in my mind, for people of my age, it was still just like a flu. It wasn't anything worse than that. And, you know, now I have a better understanding of it, and I hear about all of the, like, younger people that are dying from it now too. And so it is scary, but it's still easy to be, like, out of sight, out of mind. And I actually just had a friend of mine, her from Peace Corps, actually, her father has Corona, and is, like, in the ICU and is not doing well. And so that was really the first time, even since being back here and seeing all the chaos, that it, like, hit home, because I don't know him, but I know her, and you know, she's going through all this. And I mean, the airports and stuff during evacuation were definitely a different experience. I've been traveling my whole life, and I've never seen it like this. It was, you know, everyone was wearing the masks and the gloves and standing as far apart as they could, and it was just it was strange. But I think I was just so hopped up on adrenaline and exhaustion and delirium that I wasn't really processing everything.
Did you guys have access to, you know, the face masks and the gloves and stuff like that? Or was that something you guys kind of didn't, kind of came in blind with?
No, when we were at when we were doing our very, very expedited COS conference in Entebbe, one of the things we had to do before leaving was meet with the Peace Corps medical officer and just go over, what our current health status was and get the paperwork that we would need because normally you would have to get the physical and stuff before you're sent home. But obviously we weren't in a position to do that. So they had to get us all the forms in order to get all that stuff done once we got home. And one of the things they gave us, any of the medicine, like our prescriptions that we had that were supposed to be coming in the following weeks. And they gave us hand sanitizer and a couple of masks per person.
Nice.
For us to use.
I have another question for you.
Sure.
Along the same vein, I guess. Does the Peace Corps, even like when you're heading into, we talked about in part 1 a little bit about, malaria and whatnot. Did you take malaria medication? Was that prescribed to you? Was that something that you guys used?
Yeah. So you are required, and I don't think this is all Peace Corps posts, just where malaria is an issue, but you're required to take a prophylaxis.
Okay.
And they have, at least for Uganda, they gave us 3 options when we first arrived.
Yeah.
And one of them is a once a week prophylaxis that you take.
Yeah.
But apparently it can have effects on your mental health, and so if you have any kind of mental health issue,
I'm trying to think of the name of that one. Yeah,
it's mefloquine.
Mefloquine. Okay.
Yeah. And so off the bat with my anxiety, I was told I can't take that one.
Yeah.
Another one is Malarone, and that's what I took. That's a daily one, and I took that the summer before when I had come with faraway friends.
Yeah.
But
I took that one as well.
Yeah, that one's the most common that I've encountered, but for me, when I had been on it before, it really messed with my mental health, which can be a side effect with that, but it's not as common as with mefloquine.
I had the dreams. I definitely had the weird dreams.
That was what it was. I had dreams that just sent me into an almost depressive state. Like I would just wake up and not be able to get out of it.
They were really intense dreams. Yeah.
They were really intense, and they honed in on things that were making me sad or upset or whatever. And, things I didn't normally think about, but it was forcing them onto my mind, and I couldn't escape it. And so
well, plus waking up when you're, I'm assuming Uganda was pretty warm when you were there, but it's a transition of, we talked about, I had been to Haiti. And so when I was in Haiti, I had taken some of these same things, but you wake up and you're like a sweaty mess, because it's hot.
It was not fun.
So you're have these really shitty dreams, and then you wake up in a sweat and gross. And then you're
not fun.
No, so you didn't sleep well that night, clearly, and then you try to get back into the groove of things. So
so I told them off the bat, I was like, I've taken Malarone and it does not work with me, so give me the third option. So the one I ended up on was a daily prophylaxis, and
was it the chloroquine or no?
It was doxycycline. Okay. I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
But I just call it Doxy.
Sure.
But
we're no medical professionals here, right?
Yeah. So if you test positive for malaria, though, they will test your blood to make sure to see if you've been taking the prophylaxis. And if you're found to not be taking it, I believe you would get sent home.
Oh, wow. Man, I didn't realize they had such strict rules with the Peace Corps.
Yeah.
And
they showed us this whole gruesome video about people who got malaria and now have this deformity or this physical, some sort of something wrong with them now that's permanent. And then of course it talked about a Peace Corps volunteer who died from malaria, and it's just this whole video that's meant to just drill into you, take your prophylaxis,
so bottom line, take it.
So they did not mess around with that stuff, and we slept with mosquito nets. So
nothing worse than a mosquito buzzing in your ear at night either.
Oh, those were the worst.
Oh, it is the worst. I had one night when I was in Haiti that I didn't sleep with a net, and they just find your ear and they buzz your ear.
It's awful.
And they're biting you the whole time too. So that was miserable. I did use it. That was the only time I think I didn't have a mosquito net, but I wore one. I had one the next day.
Yep. Yeah, you learn quick in those kind of situations.
Yep.
Yeah.
So interesting. Yeah, I just was curious about that. Just with there's a lot of talk about what is it, the chloroquine or whatever it is.
Yeah. So actually, when we come back from service, we're supposed to take it might be the chloroquine. I'm not sure exactly what it is off the top of my head, but we're supposed to take some sort of post-exposure malaria medication just in case. Yeah. And we're also supposed to take some sort of prescription for schisto, which
I'm not familiar with that one.
I am not going to pretend that I know a lot about it. All I know is it's not fun to have. Yeah. And it's I believe a parasite. Yeah, I believe it's a parasite, and you get it from being in water, in contaminated water. So everyone, though, all of the Uganda volunteers are supposed to take it after their service, just because sometimes it can be dormant, I guess, or asymptomatic. So they want you to take it to just kind of flush out your system no matter what. And what I admittedly have not called my doctor yet, but I'm being told from my fellow volunteers that a majority of people are not even able to get them because when they call for the prescription, they're being told that the ingredients in those drugs is being used to try to treat corona. Right. So they're being very understandably stingy with it. We are just, I guess so, are taking it as just a precaution. Sure. Whereas like if it could actually treat this insanely fast spreading disease, by all means, I'm fine. Because we also still have to take our prophylaxis for 1 to 4 weeks, depending which medication you're on. Yeah. And I'm fairly certain, I've been home 2 weeks now. I'm fairly certain if I had malaria, I would have had symptoms by now. Yeah. And schisto, I was never really in the water, so I'm not really concerned about it. But
that's good.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting time to try to come back and get medical things done.
Yeah. And what was that experience of coming back? I mean, I know I've heard, we've all heard probably the stories of people flying in and really long lines. Everybody have to be tested or have their temperature taken before they enter, and all these different things. What was that like for you?
It actually wasn't too bad by the time that I got, I think because I was quite literally on one of the last airlines that was even functioning still. Most of the airports, I was in the Ethiopian airport and then the Dulles airport in DC. And then my flight was supposed to leave from Dulles a few hours later, but got canceled. So they sent me to Reagan Airport for a different flight. Perfect. But why not, right? Yeah, exactly. But pretty much all of the airports that I was in were pretty empty. And, there weren't really long lines except when all of the volunteers, like when we were leaving Ethiopia, there were, I think, 300 of us by the end of it from different countries. And then there was State Department staff and things like that. So, when we were all coming in for this same chartered flight, we of course had to be in line just with each other. But generally speaking, it was very empty. It was kind of eerie, but it was not as grueling as I thought it would be, like coming through customs and all of that. It was a fairly, once we got on the plane, it was a fairly pain-free process. It was getting to the planes. Or getting to that first plane that was the stressful part.
And I know we talked about it off air, but you are currently living in New Orleans, right? Or Louisiana, at least? New Orleans?
Yeah, New Orleans. Okay.
So did you flew into DC and then you took another flight there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Nice. Then were you given kind of protocol? I mean, I know that you've been in quarantine, but like what did that verbiage look like? What were you told? Did you have much information?
Not really. To their defense, they were trying to juggle 7,000 plus volunteers all at once.
Yeah, I can't imagine. Like,
yeah. So it was hard to. First off, they had to make sure that they had correct information to give us, and then had to get it out to all of us and make sure that there was a lot of things happening, but we were pretty much told to self-quarantine for 14 days. A lot of countries that got evacuated didn't have cases yet, like Uganda.
Yeah.
So it was, it wasn't like go into a literal bubble for 14 days. It was just, just be smart, be cautious.
Yeah.
Kind of similar to the message that people in America have been being told, like just, social distancing and wash your hands and just try not to come in contact with too many people. That may be very different for volunteers coming from places that already had cases. They may have had a more extensive process. But yeah, for us, it was really just self-quarantine for 14 days. And if you had to find lodging for that 14 days, if you couldn't self-quarantine at home because you live with someone who's over 65, or you live with someone who has some sort of disease that will make them susceptible to getting sick, then they would reimburse you for lodging for the 14 days. Wow. If you had to do that. I'm sure that there was a cap on that. I was fortunate enough to have a place to stay, but yeah, so they did offer that, which was really nice.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it sounds like the Peace Corps and their leadership. I mean, I can only imagine the sleepless nights that they had throughout this process,
Yeah, and I do not envy them.
And are probably still having.
I'm sure.
I've been on the other side of mass logistics, and I can't imagine what that was like for them. But it sounds like they did their best to take care of you guys, and
they did.
Have done a great job, it sounds like, of kind of covering their bases and knowing what your needs would be and knowing what that was like. But whoa, crazy. You and you've been, other than your allergies, you're health free, right? I mean, you're feeling good, doing well.
Yeah,
I'm
doing well. As far as I know, I don't have corona. I don't have any symptoms of it, so knock on wood.
Fingers crossed.
I hope I'm clean on that front. But yeah, everything's been pretty much good. I mean, even in Uganda, I didn't have nearly as many particularly stomach issues as a lot of people do. Yeah. I did get 3 bacterial infections in the first 5 months.
Fun.
But comes with the territory.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I mean, I never had any major health issues while I was there or since being back. Everything's just been pretty stable. Mental health is a different story, but
right. Yeah, it's great. Especially like being, you talked about anxiety and something that you've dealt with in the past, and man, I'm good now, but when everything kind of started to ramp up there in a bit, I like kind of went into information overload where I was just taking in too much information. I wanted to know everything and anything I could get my hands on, and but there's a limit, and then it becomes unhealthy, and then you start to just be paranoid and freak out.
Absolutely.
And, I mean, what a crazy time to be alive, right? I mean, do you know of any? I mean, obviously you don't have a personal relationship with all 7,000, but are there any cases that you're aware of in the Peace Corps of coronavirus? COVID-19?
I actually don't know of any. I think there may have been one from one of the countries that we were picking up on our flight that ended up delaying or canceling that flight we were supposed to take, but I don't know if that was just like a potential exposure or if somebody was showing symptoms. I'm honestly, as far as I'm aware, I'm sure that there is a case, but I don't know of any.
Statistically, there's bound to be at least one, but interesting. Now, I mean, the real question, and you've talked about this throughout this whole period, in the first part 1, we talked a lot about your time in Uganda and that experience of kind of joining the Peace Corps, getting kind of finding your location, finding your place, finding your I don't know, getting in that rhythm, I guess, if you will, in Uganda. But there's the piece that you guys just kind of up and left, and you didn't get to say goodbye to those people were you able to later, have you been able to kind of reconnect and talk with some of those people? How are people doing back in Uganda? If so, what's that been like for you?
Yeah, it was really hard not saying goodbye to anybody. My landlady wasn't home, so I wasn't able to say goodbye to her. My neighbors weren't home. And my counterpart, basically your partner at your organization, he was out of town. And he was definitely who I was closest to from my organization, and I adore him, and I'm so sad I didn't get to say goodbye. But he was also deep in a village and didn't have service, so I wasn't even able to reach him like on the phone and tell him what was happening. And so I tried to call my supervisor and let him know, but he didn't answer the phone. And so he ended up texting me when I was in the car going down to Kampala. So like I had already left. And so he texted me and said like, "Hey, sorry I missed your call. What's up?" Or, whatever. So I told him what was happening, and he was like, "Wait, really? Are you serious? What's happening?" And then he called me, and I had to be like, "Yeah, I'm literally on my way to Kampala right now." It was just so abrupt, and it was rough. But since being back here, coworkers have reached out to me. I've reached out to coworkers. It's also hard because I can only communicate from here using WhatsApp. Right. And in order to use WhatsApp, you have to have data and the social media tax paid. Right. Which isn't expensive by our standards. It's like $2 a month. Yeah. But many people can't afford that. And so, and that's just for the social media tax. Data is more expensive. But, a lot of people, they just use the local network and just call each other on the same network, so they aren't being charged. And so, a lot of people that I knew and had gotten close to didn't even have WhatsApp, so I don't even have a number or a way to reach them. So, it's breaking my heart just thinking about like the people that I'm probably not going to see again, because I have no idea how to even contact them and no way to even tell them what happened, like why I left. Right. But I have been able to talk to, my coworkers and supervisors since I got back. And do you know Lillian Ajak? Yes. Yeah, so she was actually the first person I met from Uganda. I met her 9 years ago at an Invisible Children screening. Nice. And absolutely adored her. We talked forever, and I met up with her last summer that I went with Faraway Friends. She came and met us one night because she knew I was there, and we, talked all night and had a great time and have stayed in touch since then. And so I was really sad. She lives in Kampala now, so I was living in her old neighborhood, but her old region. Yeah. But I didn't get to see her while I was serving, which made me so sad. Yeah. But yeah, so I've been in touch with her mostly, and I'm trying to help her out because the issue now that Corona is there, I mean, first off, it's I'm sure that it's going to spread like wildfire once it gets out of the main cities.
Because culturally, it's just a close-knit group of people. And
yeah, it's close-knit. There's such a high population. There's no real way for everyone to avoid each other. Right. And there's already, such a prevalence of HIV and things that make them more extra susceptible. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and then on top of it, it's like the food, right? I mean, even thinking about, we have not everybody in the world has the advantage of sticking their food in the refrigerator and having a surplus of food for the next month or 2 weeks or a week.
And even if, you have something that you need to wash with water, right. So many people don't have access to clean water. Right. Or you've got to so there are just so many factors that put these communities at risk. And beyond that, the social impact that's happening is criminal activity is going to significantly increase, like looting. But they shut down public transportation and put all kinds of similar rules that we have here in America, but they're much easier for us to follow because we can stay at home. We can get our groceries delivered.
Right.
We can whatever.
Or we have a vehicle that we can drive to the grocery store.
Right, exactly. And so most people don't have their own vehicle, and most people, not most, but a very large amount of people live hand to mouth with what what money they're able to make that day.
Yeah.
And so many of those are people that, drive public transportation or are conductors for taxis or who sell food at the markets, and they can't do those things. And so they don't have money to feed themselves or their families. And so, desperate times, they're going to have to resort to stealing or whatever it is. And so that's my big concern with, my loved ones over there is just, I'm partly concerned that they would get sick, but I'm honestly more concerned. I'm more concerned about their safety, their physical safety. But hopefully I'm wrong and it doesn't spread like wildfire and the world gets it under control and can fix it.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Yeah. I'm with you. I second that motion. I'm ready to get back to my life and into things and back to normal society and see friends.
Yeah.
I work from home, throughout the week. So it's not uncommon for me to kind of be at home most of the week, but it's even a lot for me. It's like the idea that you can't leave your house or you're not supposed to, is like, it really weighs heavy on your mind. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So,
well, and a lot of Peace Corps volunteers have joked, but in a serious manner, that service prepared us very well for self-isolation.
Right.
We are certainly still getting stir crazy, but a lot of us were used to having a lot of free time on our hands with much less amenities, without Netflix, without a fridge or a microwave or whatever. Like, I was really fortunate. I had a house with electricity and running water.
Yeah.
So two things that are like the golden throne of a house, of, Peace Corps house.
Yeah.
And they were both fairly regular, but they certainly went out a lot. I actually had my water shut off one time mid shower, and it was cold water, so nobody got too jealous. But my water shut off mid shower. I was covered head to toe in soap, like my eyes were closed and had soap on my hands and my face.
So meaning,
and I just stood there for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So I was like, I can't even like open my eyes because I have soap and everywhere. And so I just stood there for a few minutes just trying to think of what to do. And then luckily the water like started trickling out. So I was like, okay,
just enough to get it off.
First, get my eyes.
Yeah.
Like the rest I can figure out. I'll just, towel the rest of the soap off, but just get my eyes open.
Right. And for you that are listening that maybe haven't ever had an experience like this, maybe you can, I'm sure yours was a little bit different than mine in Haiti, but you get in like you said, always cold water, which is kind of refreshing sometimes. Yeah. But it's also cold water. It's still a shock to the body because it's not that. So it's like jumping into a pool and you're like,
Yep.
And then you got to like turn the water off because you don't want to waste it necessarily.
Yep.
And then you like lather up and then you turn the water back on. And so.
Oh yeah, I made a whole shower playlist of songs that I can't help but dance to. So I would warm up my body before the cold water. So I was like, okay, make the cold water feel good. I gotta dance it out first.
I love it. I love it. I love it so much. Yeah, it's a process. Your showers don't last as long generally in those situations as they do maybe in the States sometimes when you got a nice hot shower and you're like,
yes.
So funny.
Hot showers have been so nice since I got back.
I bet. What has been, most people understand the concept of like culture shock, but I think that people would be surprised at the
reverse culture shock.
Yeah, reverse culture shock and even just like what that means and like kind of what that looks like or what that experience is like, because it's I don't know, at least for me, it was really hard to express and like give answers to, of like what I was feeling emotionally and whatnot. And I was only away for a couple months, you know, and you were away for almost a year. What are some of the things that you've been experiencing, and what's that reverse culture shock been like for you in isolation, quarantine?
It's been overwhelming. Honestly, I felt it the most when I came back from my trip with faraway friends, which was only 3 weeks. But during that time, we stayed for the most, except for just a few days in there, we were, you know, out in one of the more rural towns. And so we were staying on the grounds of the school that Faraway Friends has built. And there was no running water. The kids would have to walk like, I can't remember how far it was, 1 to 2 kilometers, I think, to go fetch water in jerry cans and then carry it back. And jerry cans full of water are very heavy.
Yeah.
And
5 gallons? Yes or no?
They're 10 to 20 liters, depending on which size you have.
I'll do that math and get back to you.
Yeah, I'm in the different measurements now. But, but yeah, so it when I came back from that trip, the biggest thing that got to me was I was washing my hands, and I just almost broke down at the water coming out of the sink, because I was like, God, you know, washing my hands there is first off, very different experience. Somebody like pours water over your hands while you use the soap and rinse off your hands. But second, I was like, God, I just have to turn this little knob and I get this water and then I turn it off and I'm done and that's it. And I need more and it's there and I go back and get more. Yeah. And, you know, I couldn't stop thinking about these kids and how far they had to walk just to get water.
Right.
And it wasn't even water to drink, water for literally every aspect of their lives.
Right.
Like anything you need water for, drinking, washing your hands, bathing, anything. And that was one of the biggest things for me at that time. Since being back from Peace Corps, I think there's not really any one specific thing that has shocked me. I think if there is, it's probably going into a store. Like I've only been to Walgreens and to a grocery store near my house, but you know, walking in and just seeing all of the options and how many of each option there was, and it was just overwhelming. The stuff, like the physical stuff that existed in one place, was just overwhelming. I do remember.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I do remember one specific thing that shocked me. My friend and I went to a drive-through. I think it was like Raising Cane's or something. Nice. And we went to the drive-through and got to the second window, waited maybe 30 seconds, and she handed us our giant order because I was so excited about all the chicken. And and she handed us our giant order. And I just stared at my friend for at least 30 seconds. And she was like, "What? Why are you staring at me like that?" And I said, "How did they do that?" I was like, I don't understand how we just got our food so quickly. Like, I just physically can't wrap my brain around this.
Yeah.
And so that was a lot.
Yeah, totally. The one thing that sticks out to me from my time that was like reverse culture shock for me, I remember like breaking down and crying about seeing people pull over for a ambulance, I believe it was. It was the most like emotionally charged experience I had coming back. Was like, oh wow, like everybody just gets out of the way. Like, and it's, I don't know, that was one of the big takeaways, one of my big like moments where I was like, oh wow, like so cool. Like it's something I still think about. It's just a beautiful thing that we have the privilege of having, is that like sure, medical response, immediate, like someone's got our back if we need them, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's kind of similar to what I was going to say is it's not really a specific thing, but just
it's like things you're grateful for.
It's the things I'm grateful for. And also since being back, I've just felt that being here just feels wrong for me. Like in America feels wrong, and not because of the amenities and the luxuries and all these things that I now truly appreciate, but
it's just not where you're supposed to be.
I feel like I don't relate to the people here anymore. Because I think, and I've kind of always had that view of Americans to an extent of just like a lack of global awareness and like kind of self-centered and greedy. And that's certainly not everybody. And I love so many people from America, and I'm not at all trying to like hate on America. It's just a very different
perspective,
lifestyle and perspective. And and when you're raised in America, in this world, that it's completely understandable that's how you see things. For sure. But coming back here, I'll be sitting outside and I'll hear people talking on their balconies or on their phones, and the things that they like complain about and get so genuinely angry about and so upset about, and I'm just sitting there listening. I'm like, I just don't understand this life anymore, I can't, and I don't want to get sucked back into it. So I'm trying very hard to remember how I've felt the last year and everything I've experienced, and not lose that, because I think it's so easy to fall back into complacency, and that has been my biggest fear since even before all this evacuation. I was terrified that when I finished my service, I would come home and get comfortable and just become complacent again and find a job to pay the bills, and that would be that. Whereas during Peace Corps, I started to think about all the places I want to go to, and things that I want to learn and things I want to get experience in, and I was just desperate to not come back and lose that. Because I've always wanted to travel and do things, but it always just felt like a far off dream for a future me that I didn't know yet. And I felt like I actually started to get to know her while I was in Peace Corps, and I don't want to lose that connection to who I feel like I'm becoming and who I should become. And it's really hard to do that coming back in this situation with the evacuation, because not just mine, but everybody's options are going to be so limited after this, with the job market and the economy and all of that stuff. And so, I'm just trying to remind myself, like, who I am is who I am. And I just, like, as long as I stay true to that, it doesn't matter where I am, but it's also you're very affected by your environment and the people around you. And so we'll see how it goes, but that's probably my biggest, like, culture shock so far, is just not being able to relate to the people around me anymore.
I feel for you. I really do. And especially having to spend most of your time, quarantined and by yourself. And you talked about that a little bit, and I found that to be, there's a lot of similarities. I feel a lot of, I have felt there's like you mentioned, when you were in the Peace Corps, when you were in Uganda, there's a lot of time to yourself, and it can be, I had moments, there were many moments when I was in Haiti that, I was around English speakers as well, but there was moments when I felt very lonely, where you couldn't talk, you couldn't speak, to people. And even when you did, it is perspective, it is experience. We come from different worlds, we come from different experiences in so many ways, and it's hard to like relate to people sometimes, and your conversations are maybe a little more shallow than you want them to be, or whatever it is. And you definitely find ways to kind of cope with that and to deal with that, and without your distractions like you have in the United States. But it's an interesting experience, and I'm sure that you're gonna have the process to go through over the next several months and whatever. But I did have a quick... Go ahead. No, go for it.
I was going to say, I myself have made it back home, but my dog is still stuck in Uganda.
Yes, I had all these questions. I've been writing down. I wanted to follow up about the dog. I wanted to hear about that. So she's still stuck in Uganda, so I'm still on edge about that. Yeah. What did you do? What did you have to do? Is somebody watching your dog then? Or?
So there's a vet in Kampala, in the capital,
Okay.
that will board them and will take care of any like shots and tests and things they need before they can be sent to the States. And
Nice.
they will actually like crate them, bring them to the airport, and get them on the plane for you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it costs more money, but you know,
Sure.
in our circumstance, we had to do that. We were hoping to get them on a flight with us when we left our service, but then our service ended a year early. So,
Yeah.
so there were about 10 of us who had pets that we were trying to get home, and um, it was already an obscenely high price to get them home.
Yeah.
When I originally got into Peace Corps, I knew I have a dog here in America, and I adore her. I've had her for 8 years now, and I knew that going to Uganda, I was like, I can't not have a dog. Like I know myself, I'm going to have to get a dog. And so I,
They're the
researched
best.
what it would take to get them home and if that was even possible. And I was told it's very possible, and volunteers do it all the time. And I was told it would be between it should be around $1,000, but maybe up to 2,000.
Yeah.
And obviously, I would love to not spend that money, but I knew myself well enough to know
Yeah.
I was going to get a dog.
Yeah.
And so I had planned on using my readjustment allowance from Peace Corps after my service to get her home, but then service ended early and all of that. So I ended up starting a fundraising page for her.
Nice.
Because it was with all of the craziness and the vet having to board them and then
Yeah.
take them to the airport for us. It was about $3,000. Yeah, not chump change.
Yeah.
And
Well, before you keep
so-
going, tell us how people can, help if that's still up and running.
oh yeah, it is. It's a GoFundMe page, and it's called Bring Bindi Home. Bindi. It's like Bindi Irwin is her name.
Nice.
Yeah, so I think if you just search Bring Bindi Home, it's still up there. And I didn't want to create a fundraising page, so I did so much of that, like through Invisible Children and stuff. I felt like I'd kind of maxed that out,
Yeah.
But, I was like, screw it, I'm really desperate. And, dogs are not pets in Uganda.
Right.
They are either stray dogs or guard dogs, and they are not treated well. People hit them, throw rocks at them, break their bones for fun.
Yeah.
Their skin and bones. And it's not to say that people there are not evil or anything like that. It's just the culture. It's just the way that dogs are like rats there,
Right.
And so police will actually put out poison for dogs to control the stray dog population.
Yeah. I've heard that.
So, I knew unless I could leave her with somebody who I fully trusted to keep her safe,
Yeah.
I couldn't leave her behind. And even people I know who, like locals I know who had dogs poisoned by the police. So, even though they treated the dogs well, something still happened. So I was like, if I leave her with someone, it has to be someone I trust to guard her life,
Yeah.
And so I raised the $3,000, which was incredible.
Nice.
However, once we were in Entebbe waiting for our flight information, it got to the point where only one airline was still able to fly the dogs, and that airline decided to double the price to get them home. So it was now about $6,000.
Man.
And I don't have $6,000.
Yeah.
And I was like, I literally had to fundraise to get the first amount, and this
Yeah.
is crazy. And so eight of the other owners decided to pay the rest of it to get the dogs home, and then they're going to file some sort of something against the airline because it goes against the DOT's guidelines of no price gouging.
Right.
So they're planning on getting at least that second half of the money back. But one of my friends and I, who has my dog's sister, we were like, first off, you're not guaranteed to get that money back. And second, I don't even have that money to front in the first place, even if I do get it back.
Right.
So he and I are both keeping our dogs boarded there right now, and just waiting for other airlines to open up because, unless they decide to stop price gouging and give us the original price. But until then, she's stuck there. So dang. I'm concerned that, somebody might raid the vet for a guard dog or something like that. But sure. It's out of my control for now. So we were talking about trying to get Ellen involved, but
Hey, Ellen, shout out to Ellen.
Hey, Ellen, if you would like to get my dog home from Uganda,
help bring Bindi home. Help bring Bindi home. Come on, Ellen, you can do it.
Yes.
I don't know that I have that reach, Janie, but we can sure try. All right?
Put it into the universe.
Yeah, we'll tag Ellen just to see if she can. She can hear your cries.
Oh yeah, we all fantasized about like Ellen bringing us on her show and then being like, I know you couldn't get the dogs home, so we got them home for you, and bringing the dogs out on stage and just having this big, messy, pee-filled, tear-filled reunion from the dogs and the humans. Like, we would just be a whole mess.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Janie, as we kind of, wrap things up, I've had you on the phone for quite some time now, and I really want to say, first off, thank you so much for taking the time to
thank you for having me,
to talk about your experience and to kind of bring us through what's next. I mean, it sounds like as of the Peace Corps, you fulfilled your obligations to their standard, and they've you've completed your contract. Mm-hmm. Is there any chance that you would go back? I know everyone and everything is just this massive question mark, but have you thought about what's next for you?
Yes. I don't have an answer yet, but I've thought about it.
That's cool. That's fine.
So Peace Corps plans on reopening most of, if not all of, the posts that they had, once all of this calms down. Yeah. So for everyone who got evacuated, my understanding is that we would have to reapply if we want to go back. And I believe that they would try, they've mentioned that they would expedite our applications. Yeah. But still no guarantee, that you would be accepted, and also no guarantee that you would get the same country, let alone the same organization that you were with. So you would potentially be starting over.
That's probably also just like a lingo to keep you like.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I've heard mixed things, just because all of this has progressed so rapidly and so many things have changed so quickly. So I'm not sure if this is true or not, but I heard occasionally that if we returned, we would, like, what we've done of our service so far would count towards our renewal of service. So we wouldn't necessarily have to do the full 2 years from scratch. I don't know if that's true because they ended up closing all of our services officially. Mm-hmm. I think that might have only been on the table when it was still like interrupted service. Yeah. But I'm not sure. But so for me personally, I will definitely be back to Uganda to visit and see people and places and everything. But I don't plan on reapplying. Sure. Just because it was such a grueling experience. And I did, I grew and changed in ways that I couldn't have here. And it was an invaluable experience. And I'm sure were I to go back, I would continue to grow in that way. But I kind of feel like the growth that I did have equipped me with the tools to continue to grow throughout my life, like to continue on the trajectory that I was going, if that makes any kind of sense. Yeah. Totally. So I think my plan now, there's I don't know if it's a bill or what it technically is, but it's going through, I think, Congress this week. They're trying to get returned Peace Corps volunteers hired at places like FEMA and AmeriCorps and CDC and places that are really involved with the COVID-19 response, because they were saying, we kind of got screwed out of our situation. Like, we
Yeah.
don't qualify for unemployment and all this stuff.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. And B, you know, a lot of volunteers have a skill set that could be really useful during this, even if it's just like the sensitivity of communication revolving around a disease or any kind of illness. So if that passes, or if that goes through and they decide to, you know, expedite hiring for RPCVs, I would probably apply for something like that.
Cool.
At least for the meantime, to, you know, kind of continue my service in a way, and do something that's useful right now. And eventually, though, my goal is to start my own business. I just have to figure out how to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well,
and I've had an Instagram for it for like 2 or 3 years now, but I haven't been able to actually start to make it a business. It's just an Instagram page for now.
Not that I have any knowledge that will help you, but if there's anything we can do here at Crazy Face Center to help you, you know, kind of pursue that dream and kind of help you along that process, please let us know. And
yeah, I will.
Again, if you're listening, please go to the GoFundMe. You can search Bring Bindi Home. That is Bindi, Bindi. Bring Bindi Home. Help Janie out. Help her get her pup home. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. I know, I don't know what people's responses are to you when you come back, but thank you. Thank you for your service.
Honestly, it's been a lot of thanking me for serving, and it's kind of overwhelming because it's hard to think about it from like how other people see you. You're just so wrapped up in like your experience and how you're feeling about everything. So it's weird, but it's very nice to hear, you know, to hear people appreciate.
Yeah, absolutely. I really do appreciate it. I thank you for, you know, for serving. I think it's really cool. I think it's amazing. And you've been through a lot, so don't forget to take some time for yourself, and it's okay. I want you to know that it's okay to just sit and to breathe and to just experience and to think about and to be sad and to be happy and to miss, and all of those things are okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that sometimes we think that there's more to be done than what maybe there really is, and so I hope you know, and I hope you can find peace in that and find just comfort in knowing that whatever you're feeling and whatever feelings kind of come and go, it's okay.
Thank you. I needed to hear that.
Absolutely. Janie, thank you so much for coming on. Is there anything you want to leave us with before we go?
Oh, gosh. Well, thank you for having me, first off, and thank you to everyone who has listened to me talk for 3 hours.
Might be the record podcast, by the way.
Oh, I'm honored. My family will undoubtedly make fun of me for being on a podcast for 3 hours. But yeah, no, thanks just to everyone listening. You know, if you're considering anything like Peace Corps or any kind of volunteer service abroad or domestically and have questions, feel free to find me online. I'm happy to answer any questions and talk it out. And thank you in advance for just wanting to help people, whatever way you do that.
Awesome.
It matters.
It does. Janie, thank you again. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's
no
been
problem.
A real
Thank
honor.
you so much for having me.
And for all of you listening, thank you so much for listening to the CrazyFaceUno podcast. We greatly appreciate it, and we want to say thank you to you. If you want to check out our website, crazyfaceuno.com, we are currently, any sales of our mugs and any of the merchandise we have, along with donations, are going to the World Central Kitchen. So please consider buying a mug or donating, or just going straight to World Central Kitchen and donating there as well. We love you all. Thank you all for tuning in. Peace.